Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about writing your conclusion. Because it doesn't do you any good to have done all the research, which you didn't do. Use somebody else's research and being able to do all the work that you've done without telling us yes or no, it answered your question. Again, remember the question is very important. Hopefully you looked at the question again so that you remember what to write. You remember, and you can write the population just one time. So if it's like out of students at Queen Margaret year 2016 or whatever, you can write that once, but then you do have to mention both comparison populations, okay? All right, writing your conclusion. Everything about your conclusion is based on the informal confidence interval. And everything about writing your conclusion based on the informal confidence interval is based on whether or not the confidence intervals overlap. Because remember that in your original question, you asked, I wonder if the median of this one is bigger than the median of this one, right? And we can't do that without thinking about the median of every sample you can possibly take, which is what the confidence interval does, right? It gets you a block of medians instead of just your single one from your sample. And if they overlap, you can't say that one is bigger than the other, can you? Yeah? But if they don't overlap, that means one of them is bigger than the other. Now, be careful. The question you ask might be, do girls have better scores than boys? And then they don't overlap, but it might be that the boys have better scores than the girls, so it still didn't answer your question properly, did it? So make sure you're careful about which one's which, and they'll be labeled for you. All right? So we're going to go through and just look at the basic pieces of this and talk about it. Now, all right, again, back to EP because it's so good. So we're going to identify if the two samples overlap. That's the whole thing your conclusion is based on. Determine what that means in context of the population. That's a sentence that you just have to copy and paste. Then we're going to write a conclusion by making an inference and discussing your findings. That part you will have to write, but you have a template for it, right? As with all of these. How many sentences does that look like to you? Looks like 3, maybe 4 to me, okay? Again, remember, if you write more than 3 sentences, you better be careful because I'm going, for each one of these things, not the whole paper, for each one of these things, then I'm going to be looking carefully to see if you contradicted yourself so I can say the whole thing's wrong. Right? So, that is to discourage you from getting crazy and killing me like y'all did on the questionnaire thing. All right, so let's just look at some things. So what we're going to do is, sorry, puppies and kitties, you know. All right, we're going to look at overlap and no overlap, right? So you can just see that if they go across each other, there's overlap. If they don't, then there's no overlap. Can everybody see that with the blue boxes? Okay, then you've made your conclusion. Overlap means no, I cannot conclude that this group of arm spans is longer than this group of arm spans or whatever. No overlap means yes, I can conclude with confidence that this is true. Okay? And we'll look exactly at how to.
This is true, or this is true in this
no, it's going to be true because we can be fairly confident that the population median is going to be within that blue box, right? And so we can say it, and you're going to see that it's one of the few places in statistics where you can make a yes statement. Most of the time you cannot. You can't. Okay? So remember that the actual median for the population is somewhere in that blue box. So that means if they overlap, then the median could be the same, or one median could be bigger than the other, and you can't tell. Okay? So let's just go to the section on writing the conclusion so you can see the pieces. All right, so we can draw a conclusion based off them just simply by whether they what? Overlap. Yeah, don't make it harder than it is. So when you're in the conclusion section, what you're going to do is you're going to state the following things. So this is more of a 4-sentence thing. Ooh, the conclusion gets a little bigger. You must recap or restate your original investigative question. Yes, it's stupid, but it just has to be. And, right, the top one is it or I wondered if, I wonder if. This one is I wondered if, right? It's the past tense because we're moving forward. You must say if they overlap or not. No numbers, no nothing, just do they overlap. You must state that you're confident that the populations lies somewhere in the ICIs. That is just copy and paste. You're going to see they even write it in different color to show you which ones you have to change to suit your data and which ones you can just copy and paste. Okay? And then whether you can make the claim that one median is greater than the other. Okay? Now, again, remember that the final one, this one about this, should be within context of the investigation. So we'll look at a couple. So here we go. We have some charts for about diesel prices by island, North Island and South Island. It's pretty clear to see that those blue boxes do overlap, right? No way. Come on, you guys, wake up. No, they do not overlap, okay? So look at the possible conclusion that they write. The possible conclusion for this is, I wondered whether the median diesel price in cents per liter for the South Island stores is greater than the one for the North Island stores. Look at all the detail. Every single piece of that original question is back again. And it needs to be. You just copy it from where you asked it and put it down there and change it from, instead of I wonder if, change it to I wondered if. Okay? Then, we can see that the ICIs for this sample medians do not overlap. Now, that sentence might say do overlap. The only word that might change there is not. Either they do or they don't. Everything else should be identical. This sentence is absolutely just copy and paste. I am confident that these ICIs contain the true population group medians. Every one of you will have that sentence. Okay? This sentence at the bottom is one where you're going to have a little bit of your stuff in there, but it's still just a matter of filling in the blanks with your information. Therefore, I can make the claim that the median diesel price in cents per liter. Yes, you have to be this picky and this. It seems ridiculous to continue to write that down, right? But every piece of it, the median diesel price. If you don't mention median and what you're measuring and what units you're using, then it's not right. Okay, and for where. Right, is bigger than the North Island stores. Now, the only thing that would have changed is if they did overlap, you would say they do overlap. Therefore, I cannot make the claim. And that's it. That's the big difference. So here, we'll go to that little section where they do that. So you must state the original investigative question. It has to come back. It has to include every piece of it. But again, you can just copy and paste it from the first question you made, right? Then you need to state whether they overlap or not. They do or they don't. Okay? Then you need to say that you're confident that they contain the population medians. You must include this sentence, or I cannot count you. That's an excellence part of it right there. You've got to. Okay? And then making the claim in context of the investigation. Therefore, I can claim blah, blah, blah. Okay? Those are your four things. So this one has 4 sentences, your conclusion. Remember, you're going to have access to every piece of this. You'll have your book. They have examples of this same information. I just thought the Education Perfect pieces were nice because you could copy and paste and build yourself a Word document for notes that you can go straight from that to your paper, right? Instead of having to retype all these things. Okay? All right. So, look at what they're talking about. Universal means that everyone will have those, right? Specific means that you might have some pieces of it that will change based on yours. Your question might not be the same as everybody else's question, right? You can have different questions, but you must mention the question. Everybody needs to do that. The pieces have to be the same for everyone. It has to say median, what it is you're measuring, etc. Why is it that I'm focusing really a lot on that question part right now? What are we going to do first thing Monday? We're going to write the question. And it better look like this question or like one of the other samples we've done, right? So what we're going to give you is, we're going to give you the data that you're going to be using, or the data thing, but it's going to have just the headings and not the data. and you're going to look at the headings, and you're going to decide what numerical thing I'm going to compare, right? So cents per liter, right? That's a measurement in so the diesel price in cents per liter. Any units if appropriate, and what it is, and you're then from the chart, and then you're going to put in the wording. Okay? All right. The blue part, copy and paste. I can see that for sample medias do not overlap. Now that's a little bit of a misnomer because what if they did overlap? You can't put did not. So that should ICI, informal confidence interval. That was the thing we looked at last time. That's informal confidence interval. That means the space where the population. So what they've done is they've taken the computer will do sample after sample after sample after sample, but usually there's a mathematical model. They don't have to. But with the number all of the data that you have, because remember you're only going to do a sample of it, and all the population mean will fit within those. So they're just going to sample and sample and sample and sample and get every possible median it could be. Okay? And then you need to copy that one about you can be confident in it. And then finally, therefore I can claim. Go ahead and use their horrible language, therefore I can claim. I know you don't talk that way, but right, it fits. All right? So what I think we will do for a moment is we will go back to some of those drawing a conclusion quick questions, right? So the following plot shows 100 randomly selected year 12 male students in New Zealand in 2016. Okay? Based off the sample, we can be confident that the median height for 12-year male students in New Zealand in 2016 is between 173.95 and what in this case? Can you see that little number? You bet. So it's just type in those values. Those values are the limits from the smallest to largest. You need those from last time. Remember we talked about the confidence interval. You're going to need to write those numbers down. Yes?
How do we calculate those again?
You don't. You just click on a button. Remember, I want you to watch that video. There's going to be one that says informal confidence interval, and right below it, off to the side, it's going to say do the boundary numbers. You want to click both of those. Okay? Do y'all want to watch the video together? That's so lazy. I love it. Y'all are such inquiring minds, that's what I should say. Okay? So just go through and answer some of those questions just so that you'll be familiar with where all those information is coming from. Okay? All right. So let's go to NZ Grapher and we will watch the video. Super quick and easy. There's not much to it. So oops. Okay. Again, these are all under help, video tutorials. You can go straight down to the specific standard that you're doing, and it'll have videos tailored to that topic, right? And here we're talking about sampling a data set and all the different pieces that you need. Don't go any further than this box and whisker plot. But for sampling a data set, that's what we're going to watch.
One of the things that we need to do is take a sample from the population. So what I'm going to do for this example is we're going to use the Kiwi data set, and I'm going to show you two different sampling methods. The first sampling method is simple random sampling. So what we do is we press the sample button up here, and we want a simple random sample of 40 Kiwis, and we press sample. What that will do is it will go through and it will sample, so we just have 40 Kiwis left in our sample here. If I reset my data set, I can show you how we can sample using a stratified sampling method. So if we press sample, if we choose gender here,
you can ignore
we want to
this
make
one.
sure that we have a proportional number of male and female Kiwis. We can see that currently there are 364 females and 336 males. Once we have these numbers, what we want to do is we want to work out what proportion of 40 this would be in order to have a representative sample. The way that we do this is we need to work out the total number that we have. Now we can add these numbers together and see that in total,
You won't need a stratified sample. You'll use a simple random sample
so to work out
and
the
just
number
assign a
males,
number.
we take the number
Okay?
we have, divide by the sample, which is the males. Now on this nearest whole number, if we then, and our males is 19.
Not worried about
Sample so that we have 21 female. Now have a data set that has been sampled, so we can now go on and create graphs from this.
this. You need. Okay. All right. So simple random sample. You will need to know how to do. Okay. Great. YouTube. All right. Then you will need to be able to create a box and whisker plot.
In order to draw a dot plot, we need to come down here and change the graph type to dot plot. Then we need to choose a numerical variable for our variable 1. In this case, we're going to look at the birth weight.
Once you bring your data in, it'll have all these
Variable
labels
2
there.
is a numerical or categorical variable that we want to split by. In this case, we're going to have a look at whether or not the mother smokes. The third variable we can use to subset. For example, if we wanted to look at the mother's age, we can then split it up into the mothers who are under 22, 22 to 30, and so on. But in this particular example, we don't want to do that. We can also colour by any particular variable we would like. So, for example, we could colour by the race, and then we can see the white mothers are blue, the other mothers are green, and the black mothers are represented by these red dots. We can also add in summaries where we can see the minimum, the lower quartile, the
Definitely you want
median,
summaries.
quartile max, standard deviation, and the number of points in each group. We can also come along and add in our box plot. Now this overlays the box plot over the points. If you prefer to have the box plot high, you can untick that and tick the high box plot instead.
That's the one you want.
If you're in year 12, you're going to also want to add the informal confidence interval, which you get by ticking this box here, and the confidence interval limits. These are based off the median plus or minus 1.5 times the interquartile range divided by the square root of n. You can also add in point labels so you can identify which points are which. For example, this here is point 187.
Don't do that.
We can come down on our list here until we find 187, and we can see that this here was a mother that did not have a low birth weight. They were 19, white, and so on. Now looking at this, our title and axis labels are not particularly good.
This is
So
important.
The title would be birth weight by mother smoke. When we look at our axis labels, it's important to add in the variables. So this would be the birth weight in grams, and we'll just muddy up that mother smoke slightly, and then we'll update the graph. We probably don't want the point labels on when we're exporting this, so we're going to untick those point labels. And then to export the graph, you can either right-click on it and either click on copy the image or save the image as.
How exciting was that? Okay. Watch the what? The pancake one. No, it goes to my YouTube. It's got stupid stuff. It's got like bagpipe marchers, and I really love bagpipe music. It's a sickness. Crap like that. So there you go. And there's some other things you can look at there. Don't worry about them too much. But, okay, now, you might want to look at entering your own data because you're going to have to copy data. But all you need to copy data into NZ Grapher is go to data and import from clipboard. So you'll just copy, just like you always did, and then import from clipboard, and it'll put it in there. We will already have it all arranged and ready to go in for you so that it'll be in a format. So on the day of the test, what'll happen is you'll come in and I'll give you the papers, and then I will email you all, send an email with the link to the data set. And we'll again have cleaned it all up and get it ready for you. So you'll have to do a random sample and create the graph type. So you look down there, there's graph type, dot plot, box and whisker, etc. Okay? And of course you want sample. Yes. Okay? All right. Let me stop this real quick, and then we'll talk about questions.